Here's something Buddhism figured out 2,500 years ago that most people spend their entire lives missing. You are not who you think you are. Right now, you're probably carrying a version of yourself that was built from other people's expectations, old wounds, and borrowed beliefs. And it's exhausting. What if the moment you stopped trying to be more, better, or different was the moment everything finally felt like enough? That's exactly what we're exploring today. And by the end, the word enough might mean something completely different to you. Let's begin. In northern India, there is an ancient city called Varanasi. Along the banks of the Ganges, just beyond the edge of the city, there was a quiet grove called the Deer Park. Green trees arched overhead, and soft beams of sunlight filtered down to the forest floor. Deer grazed peacefully in the shade. A breeze moved gently through the grass. Somewhere a bird called out, and then fell silent. One afternoon, 6 figures were gathered in that grove. 5 of them sat waiting. The 6th was walking slowly toward them from a distance. The approaching figure had a calm face, and yet there was something else in it, a quiet light, as if he were carrying something deep and still inside him. The 5 men looked at each other. Something was different. The very air felt different. This was the moment the Buddha reunited with his 5 former companions, and it was here, in this gentle place, that the most famous first teaching was about to begin. He sat down among them without ceremony, the way a stone settles into still water. No announcement was made, no grand gesture offered, only the sound of the wind through the leaves, and 5 men leaning forward almost without knowing they had moved. The teaching that followed would one day spread across continents and centuries, but in that moment, it was simply one person speaking quietly to a few others in the fading afternoon light. The 5 men's names were Khandana, Vapa, Bhadya, Mahanama, and Asaji. They had once been the Buddha's fellow seekers, companions in hardship. Before he found awakening, they had practiced together, enduring austerities almost beyond imagination. They ate almost nothing. They pushed their bodies to the breaking point. They believed that by forcing themselves to suffer, they would draw closer to the truth. But then, one day, the Buddha simply stopped. He accepted a bowl of rice porridge from a village girl and ate it. The 5 men felt betrayed. After everything they had endured together, he had gone soft. He was no longer a true seeker. Disappointed and disillusioned, they left him and traveled to the deer park outside Varanasi. Time passed. The Buddha, now alone, sat beneath a fig tree and remained there until he awakened. And when he thought of who he most wanted to share what he had found, the faces of those 5 men came to him first. He made his way to the deer park. The 5 men spotted him from a distance. They agreed among themselves, "We won't acknowledge him. What could a man who abandoned his practice possibly have to say?" But as he drew closer, something shifted inside them, almost against their will. They found themselves standing up, offering him a seat, bringing water. Something was different. This man had changed. "How, Tama?" one of them finally asked. "You gave up the austerities, and yet, why do you look like that?" The Buddha answered quietly, "I didn't abandon the austerities. I simply saw that they were one extreme. Losing yourself in pleasure is one extreme, punishing the body is another. Neither leads to truth. When I walked the middle path between them, that is when I saw." "What did you see?" The Buddha paused. The wind moved softly through the leaves of the grove, the nature of suffering, and the path by which it ends. The 5 men waited in silence for him to continue. And so he began. He spoke of how suffering is woven into life, how suffering has a cause, how that cause can be uprooted, and how there is a path that leads to its end. But there was one thing the Buddha returned to again and again that day, with the most patience and the most care. It was the question of what we mean when we say I. "Each of you," he said, "has something you believe to be yourself. This body is me, this feeling is me, this thought is me, this emotion is me, this awareness is me." The 5 men nodded. "Then let us look at each one carefully. Is your body the same as it was yesterday?" One of them hesitated. "Perhaps slightly different." "Is it the same as it was 10 years ago?" "No, it isn't." "Then is the body truly you? Does it obey you? When you wish not to fall ill, do you still fall ill?" "Yes." "What about your emotions? Do you sometimes grow angry when you didn't want to? Do you sometimes fall into sadness without choosing it?" "That happens." The Buddha continued, his voice still and clear. "Body, sensation, perception, emotion, awareness, all of these shift and change. and none of them fully obey you. So tell me, in which of them does the self reside? The 5 men had no answer. The self, as a fixed and permanent thing, does not exist anywhere to be found. That is one of the things I saw. A deep silence settled over the grove. Nearby, a deer lifted its head slowly, then lowered it again and went on grazing. In this first teaching at the deer park, one of the things the Buddha spoke of is sometimes described as the 5 aggregates are not the self. It sounds like a mouthful, but the idea at its heart is simple. What we call I is made up of 5 layers: the body, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. And the Buddha said that not one of these layers is, in any lasting sense, truly you. This is the root of what Buddhism calls emptiness. When people hear that word emptiness, they sometimes imagine a void, a kind of nothingness. But that's not what it means. Emptiness means there is no fixed, permanent substance underneath things. Let's try an image. Think of a river. The water you point to and call the river has already moved downstream by the time you say the words. Yet the river is still there. It has a shape, a name, a presence, but its contents are always changing. That's close to what emptiness means. The self is like that river. Yesterday's you and today's you feel continuous, and they are in a way, but the cells have changed, the thoughts have shifted, the feelings have moved through and passed on, the body has aged even slightly. The label me stays attached, but what it points to is flowing, always. Before we go further, there is one misunderstanding worth clearing up. Emptiness does not mean nothing matters. It does not mean you are worthless, or that your life has no significance. This is important. What the Buddha was pointing toward was not meaninglessness, it was freedom. Think of how tightly we hold certain stories about ourselves. I am a person who can't speak in front of others. I am someone who always fails at this. I am too far gone to change. We build boxes for ourselves, step inside and lock the door. But if the self has no fixed substance, if it is not a solid, unchanging thing, then those boxes have no real walls. I can't change is a belief. And like all beliefs, it is not a permanent fixture of reality. It is something arising in a stream that never stops moving. Past failures do not define you in any absolute sense. Yesterday's anger does not have to be the shape of tomorrow's self. The shame you've carried for years, it does not have to be the only story. This is what the Buddha was truly offering in that quiet deer park. Not a lesson in philosophy, but a doorway out. So much of our suffering is born from holding tightly to things that are by their very nature in motion. We grip the flowing water and wonder why our hands are always wet. Emptiness seen this way is not a loss. So how does this teaching, this idea of emptiness, touch our actual lives today? Let's look at 3 moments that many of us know well. The first is at work. I'm bad at speaking in front of people. Does that sound familiar? Before a presentation, the body tenses, the voice shakes, a past failure replays. And then it happens again, and the label grows a little more permanent. Through the lens of the Buddhist teaching, that label, I'm bad at this, is not a fixed truth. It is a pattern arising from particular conditions. A certain context, a certain history, a certain kind of tension in the body. Change the conditions, and the pattern can change. You haven't proven you can't do it. You simply haven't yet met the circumstances that show you a different side of yourself. The box that says not a public speaker has no real lock on it. You are allowed to step outside. The second moment is in a relationship. Someone you've known for years says something cruel, or a relationship you treasured has gone cold and awkward, and a thought forms almost automatically. That's just who they are. But they too are a river. That unkind word was spoken by someone who was exhausted or cornered or carrying something you couldn't see. It is not the sum total of who they are. This is not a call to dismiss your pain. What you felt was real. But the moment we decide that's just the kind of person they are, we freeze them in place. And in doing so, we freeze ourselves too. We stop being able to see them clearly. We stop being able to move. The teaching of emptiness isn't about forgiving everyone for everything. It's about noticing that when we fix another person in amber, we imprison ourselves alongside them. The third moment is when life itself changes around us. The body doesn't move as easily as it once did. Memory slips. Work that once came naturally now takes effort. Children grow up and leave. Roles we built our identity around quietly disappear. When we grip tightly to the person I used to be, we lose sight of who we are right now. A river doesn't try to return to yesterday's water. It simply flows. And there is something rich in that. because today's river carries things yesterday's couldn't. Today's version of you has lived through things, understood things, softened in ways that the earlier version hadn't yet reached. When we release the fixed image of the self I was, we make room to meet the self that is here now. That, perhaps, is the door the Buddha was opening in the deer park. A man once told me he had spent 3 years mourning the runner he used to be, so busy grieving that body that he never once noticed how quietly in the same years he had become someone his grandchildren could actually sit with. He had been so focused on the door closing that he never felt the warmth coming through the window. The river had not stopped. It had simply arrived somewhere new. So what might you actually do with this, starting today? Here is one small thing. Tonight, before you sleep, take 5 minutes and ask yourself this question. What labels did I put on myself today? I got angry again. I'm such a difficult person. I couldn't do it. I'm just not good enough. I kept saying yes when I wanted to say no. I don't even know who I am anymore. Were there moments like that today? Words you turned inward and pressed like a stamp against your skin? Try just for a moment to gently remove the stamp. Removing it doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing not to make it permanent, not sealing it into the shape of "this is who I am." I got angry today. That is a fact. I am an angry person. That is an interpretation. And interpretations can be loosened. One of the practices the Buddha actually taught his students was simply this: observe your own body and mind without rushing to claim them. When anger arises, instead of thinking, "I am angry," try noticing there is anger here, just a small shift in how you hold it, a little distance between the experience and the identity. My anger versus anger that is passing through. It sounds subtle, but that small difference, the loosening of me from this feeling, is what begins to soften the fixed self. Try it tonight, just once. I think you'll find that when you close your eyes to sleep, something in you will feel a little lighter than before. And if you forget, if tomorrow night you lie down and realize you didn't try it even once, that's alright. Just notice that too without pressing it into a stamp. Even the forgetting can be held lightly. A monk I once heard of kept a single smooth stone beside his bed, not to remind himself of anything in particular, but simply so that each night when his hand touched it, he remembered that stones do not hold the shape of the hands that have held them. Before we finish, I'd like to leave you with one question. What is the thing you most firmly believe to be just who you are? And has it always been that way for your whole life? There's no need to answer right now. Just carry the question with you for a little while. Perhaps it will arise while you're washing the dishes, or waiting for a train, or sitting quietly before sleep. A monk I once knew spent 40 years certain he was a man of patience, until the afternoon his neighbor's dog would not stop barking. That small, ordinary moment cracked something open in him, and he said later it was the most honest he had ever been with himself. The emptiness at the heart of today's teaching. We explored it through the image of an overflowing teacup in a previous episode. You'll find the link in the description below. Today we've been sitting with the teaching of emptiness, drawn from that first sermon the Buddha gave in the quiet of the deer park, to 5 people who had almost walked away from him. The self has no fixed, permanent substance. When you first heard that, perhaps something in you resisted. If I'm not a self, then what am I? It can feel unsettling at first, but try turning it slightly. If you are not fixed, then you are not finished. What made yesterday painful does not have to define today. What you failed at before does not own your future. The wall that told you can't change, it may never have been made of anything solid in the first place. A river doesn't go back to what it was, and yet it is still, unmistakably, a river. You are the same. You will keep changing, and through all of it, you will still be you. Please don't be afraid of that movement. In the deer park it said that as the 5 men listened, something in their faces slowly softened. Something that had been clenched just began to open. Perhaps something in you today has loosened a little too. That is enough. That is more than enough. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Not only that, it is in its own quiet way the beginning of everything. A single thread pulled loose is how the whole knot eventually gives way.